So we're at the beginning of Lent. I want to ask you a question. Where are you right now? What's going on in you? Where do you find yourself to be in this moment and in the circumstances around the moment you're in? As a PRH educator, PRH is the letters that stands for something in English, means personality and human relationships. It's part of the worldwide foundation that I belong to, and we help people with a form of holistic education, I guess you could call it, tools for growth, for personal growth. And in my capacity as someone authorized to do this, I have the job of helping those that I accompany to catch a vision of themselves as persons in the process of growing. And to make this doable, we ask people pursuing PRH education to think of themselves as in a three-dimensional reality in their lives, and they're headed down three paths at the same time. We're going down the road working on three things at the same time, so that makes it easier for us. One of the things that we encourage people to give themselves to is the growth of their own inner solidity, becoming rock solid at the core, and from the deepest part of who they are, to see more and more bedrock come forth in their lives and to take shape, their true identity, their true actions, all that makes them human, all that is greater than they are, that they're taking part of, things that transcend. Those things are within. We're born with them, but they have to be developed. And so part of that path in life is to do everything you can to foster the growth of that, and become more solid in yourself. But another thing you have to do is to realize you don't do that by yourself. You're part of relationships. You cannot be you apart from being related to others. And so that's another path to be on, or another thing to be mindful of as you go down the path. Where am I and how I experience relationship? And the easiest way to approach that to think in terms of where am I and learning what it means to love and to be loved. And this is a path where often there's a lot of healing work to do, simply because that's where sin and evil have most costly, have impacted our lives in the most costly way. The injuries and the wounds that we sustain from each other, from the bigger social environment around us. Sometimes self-inflicted things that we do or that we have done to others. And how can we grow from the effect of those things? How can we heal from those wounds? And then an energy come forth in which we find ourselves to have the freedom to give ourselves fully to others, but also to receive what comes to us that is life-giving from others, and not close ourselves off from it. But then that third path is the path of consciousness. How can we help one another grow in consciousness? And the term we use in PRH for this is deep conscience. But what it really boils down to is raising the level of awareness. What are some things we can do to practice that give us a way to be very aware of the vibes that are coming from out of ourselves, that are coming at us from places outside ourselves, to put an ear to the ground, to know what is happening, and be sure to give our attention to that. The Igbo people of Western Nigeria have a wonderful little wisdom proverb. If you put your ear to the ground, you can hear even the footsteps of a cricket. What they mean by that is if we will put our ear to the ground of our very being, we will be able to hear the steps of God. As we all know, God doesn't just trample around us. God can have a very light step. So we want to be attuned to all that is there. So it's important important that we expand our consciousness, our awareness. One other way we can get our minds around this is to look at what's happening in today's gospel. Jesus is coming out of the waters of baptism. We heard at the beginning of the Epiphany. And it was an amazing moment of intense self-awareness in terms of Jesus being deeply conscious and aware. He could not have been more fully aware than in that moment in which he hears God speak to him. You are my son, my beloved. I am well pleased in you. That is something he took away for the rest of his life. That voice speaking to him, revealing to himself that he was son, and that the Creator, that God, was his source, was his father. And that gave him power to go into the life that lay ahead of him. And that's where we find him today. And so if I were to ask Jesus a question, I asked you, where are you right now in these 40 days that are lying ahead? I could well imagine Jesus saying, no, this is a time of immense growth for me. And I feel full, I feel deeply in harmony with who I am. I have a profound sense of this moment of who I am, and that there's something that I'm here to do that I have to get done. And I am deeply conscious of the fact that there are things that want to pull me away from that and tempt me to stop short of going where I'm being called to go. So that's why I'm asking you, where are you at this moment, in the circumstances that surround it? Maybe, like Jesus coming out of his baptism, this happens to be coming at a great stretch for you. Maybe there's been something about the recent past few days or weeks where it's been wonderful. You have tasted something deeply satisfying coming together in your life in a powerful way, and you're feeling the energy of that. You've got a fresh sense of who you are, and you're glad to be who you are, and you have this deep sense of unity. And that's where you happen to be at this moment. There may be others of us who are in a different zone. We may be in a zone where something is going on in relationship. Either something sweet, like we just started to fall in love with somebody, or someone that we've been in love with for a while, where we're coming to a fresh sense of what's going on in that relationship. And there also may be some painful things. There may be some very frustrating things happening that are jamming up the relationship, and something is not doing well. Something is making us almost want to flee the relationships. It may be to someone close to us, it may be where we work, it may be people here in the body of Christ with one another. Where are we in that area of relationship? But then again, it may be that for others of us, we happen to be in a moment of a kind of inner crisis, a time of having to realize that something has brought us up short, something that maybe where we hadn't been paying attention now is begging for our attention, and we can't avoid it anymore. And we are faced with deciding whether we're going to face it, whether we're going to deal with it, whether we are indeed going to cultivate a deep consciousness and be true to who we are and take a step. Is there an act of courage that we are having to dare undertake? Is there an act of contrition, something that we realize we need to be profoundly sorry for, and we're embarrassed and shameful of what are we going to do with this? Do we have it in us to go to the other and say, I'm sorry? Is there something wanting to move in a deep level in you to bring you into more consciousness and more awareness of where you are? Maybe that's where you are at the beginning of Lent, and what is ahead for you is to give yourself to going down that path of, all right, fulfilling the demands of conscience. Not false demands, but real demands. And like Jesus, we want to live in an awareness of all have heard that voice, my son, my beloved. And what does the enemy do to him there in the wilderness? The very thing he's out there, he comes up against, is to be faced with doubts. Did I hear right? And my head is getting big. Am I deceiving myself? Am I hallucinating? Did I hear God speak in my heart, call me son? And am I just smoking the wrong stuff here or something? Thank goodness I'm called to reach out to people who are hurting and suffering. Whoa, what's happening here? With that life poured out, overwhelming him, this life that was running, that he came full of the Spirit, Luke says. He goes into the wilderness. Now, why the wilderness? Why the wilderness? Wilderness goes way back in our tradition. Moses led the people out of Egypt. Where? Through a wilderness place. Wilderness is a word that means like a desert, an isolated, deserted place, an environment, a landscape that probably doesn't have a lot of water, not a lot of plant life. There's life there, but it's very spare. I don't know if any of us have ever been in a desert place, but it's a very different landscape. And the people had to go through that. There was a journey of 40 years before they finally came to a land that was a fertile and rich land, and a land where a space opened up to them no longer to be an oppressed people, to be a free people, to walk in that freedom, and to have a place in the land like people everywhere else, and get on with their lives. So Jesus, coming out of that tradition, out of that heritage, and living where he lived, has the wilderness available to him, and that's where he goes to come to terms with both his baptismal experience and beginning to unpack that and see where does he go. But he hangs on to that. So later, when it's time for the apostles to go to the next level, to go deeper into their own formation and training, he calls them together, he pairs them up, and sends them out 2 by 2 to preach, to heal, to cast out demons, and to let people know that the kingdom of God has come near. And they do that. They do it well. And they come back, and they're thrilled because it's going so well. And they're still at it. In fact, they're at it so much that as Mark's gospel points out, they were distracted by a whole lot of coming and going. They didn't even have leisure to stop and eat. Jesus was kind of watching them go at it. And it's just at that very moment that he steps in and says, all right, stop. I'm so happy about what's going on for you. But right now, you need to stop. Let's get in a boat. I want you to go somewhere all by yourselves together and rest a while. And the gospel says he took them to a deserted place. He said, let's go to a deserted place, to a desert-like place. The Greek word, we actually, anytime you use the word hermit in English, someone who lives by himself, that actually is directly derived from the Greek word in our scriptures that means a desert, a deserted place. So why the desert? What is it about deserts? I want to read to you something written by an Anglican priest in Australia. They've got a lot of desert, just like we do in the Southwest. They've got a lot of desert there in Australia. And this is what she writes about life in the desert. When people come to the desert fringe and spend at least 4 days immersed in the environment, they report significant life changes that emerge from their experience. People report a stripping back. There is less external input at a sensory level. Life is less clouded by noise. You can hear yourself and authentic sounds. It's a place of more authenticity than life in the city or the suburb. Humans are neurologically programmed to take notice of everything. And in the city, we have to filter our extraneous sensory stimuli. People say that in the desert, there is no filtering required, so they can sense themselves more clearly and be present. The big skies that we have in the desert hint at the infinite possibilities within the self. That's why you go to the desert. Go to this place where you're not distracted, where it's not easy to get sidetracked and go off and do something instead of making yourself stop and do what needs to be done. It may be as simple a thing as straightening out the living room instead of leaving it in a bunch of clutter. And we find so many easy ways to put it off, put it off. That's temptation. We know, don't we, that it goes way beyond the things that we are tempted to put off, the things that we are tempted to back off or going into in those areas of our own growth, or in the areas of our relationship, or in the areas of coming to terms with the demands of deep conscience. So Jesus is saying, deal with the distractions. What you're going to have to do is you're going to have to create a space for yourself. You're going to have to make sure that there's a place, whether it's in your own house or apartment, or someplace that the house is too small for that, and go outside the house. Find somewhere where you can be quiet, turn off that telephone, turn off that radio, turn off that iPod, whatever else it is. Take those earbuds out of your ears. Stop overstimulating yourself. Simplify so that finally God can get through to you. So that finally, your own body can get through to you, and you can stop ignoring your body and mistreating it and taking it for granted. Finally, your own sense of relationship can get through to you, and you can listen to it and do something about it, instead of being jerked around by the temptation to run away and not deal with it. So that's the image I want to invite you to ponder as we go into Lent and calm down that trail, and to do it in a way in the spirit of Deuteronomy, where we started is where I want to end. That first lesson we had today, in Deuteronomy, it's Moses speaking to the people and saying, look, it's time to get ready to cross the Jordan and enter completely into a land that has been promised to us. We had to struggle out here in the wilderness. We're almost there. We're almost there. And I want to tell you now, the day is going to come. We've been in the land. You planted stuff. You planted yourself. You built a home. You're no longer a slave like your ancestors were. A whole generation has died back there in the wilderness. It's a whole new generation now that's going to walk over into the promised land. The children of those slaves that didn't make the whole trip out of Egypt. And you're going to get a chance to harvest your very first harvest. And when you do, before you do anything else, take some of it and take it to the place of worship and offer it there with thanksgiving. And when you offer, say these words. It's sort of like a Nicene Creed before Nicaea. Say to the Lord your God, my ancestor was a wandering Aramean, not an Armenian, but an Aramean. The fact is, we don't know what Arameans were. The scholars, given all possibilities, what it seems to come down to is a word like the word Arab or the word gypsy. Arab originally was not an ethnic word. It was a word that was a category, a social category of people who were like wanderers, aliens, undocumented people wandering through the land. We talk about wandering gypsies. Well, apparently that's the idea behind Aramean, whatever was a wandering Aramean. But my answer was a wandering Aramean. And that word wandering in Hebrew is intriguing because it also is a word in Hebrew that means starving. So I had a starving, wandering ancestor back there who, against their will, were taken into captivity in Egypt for generations, tasting bitter oppression oppression and abuse until God intervened and with a strong arm and a mighty hand took them out and brought them, delivered them to a place and into this land where we now are. And Moses says, when you get there on that day, put it that way, to remind yourself where you came from, because that moment didn't just pop out of nowhere. It is the moment at the end of all those moments of oppression and wandering that your ancestors lived and that you lived. So when you come to that moment, don't forget where you came from. Just because you got this new land and these new possibilities, the temptation at that point is for it to all go to your head. I'm the first mayor of my people, I'm the first person elected to that post, or the first person to be honored in such a way. And I can also become a terror because it all goes to my head. And so he's saying, remember where you came from. Don't disconnect yourself. Don't stop identifying with those wandering, starving aliens, those undocumented types. Say to yourself, that's me too. That's who I'm from. And therefore that passage concluded with Moses saying, look, when you offer the gifts to the Levites, don't stand there by yourself. It's not just you. Be there with the Levitical priest. And also, by the way, have some of those aliens. Have some of those documented, undocumented people near you as well. Don't push them out of the land. Don't see them as other or some kind of threat to who you are, because that's who you were once yourself. So if anybody should accommodate them and make room for them, you should. And such becomes a kind of practice, a spiritual practice that helps that inner solidity become more solid, relationships to really be right, and for the energy of conscience and to be faithful to conscience and not hold away from what is revealed to us from within and we're called to be and called to do. I found a little thing on the web that is a paraphrase of the same chapter in Deuteronomy, and that's what I'm going to read to you to close. Remember, it was about coming into the land which was promised you. So when you have come into the land of Lent, that is your inheritance, take the fruit of your journey and remember how you have come to where you are. Then celebrate the bounty of your Lenten landscape. So often we forget that Lent is a journey that is important in and of itself. We're so much in a hurry to get to Easter that we forget it's the wandering Aramean in us that will mysteriously land us in a new relationship with God, with creation, with one another, with aliens, and with ourselves. It doesn't come on our schedule. And so, rejoicing along the way and remembering that bounty is as bounty is received. We enter with no expectation of getting to Easter. Just do the journey. This might be a time of recognizing ourselves as illegal immigrants or aliens in a strange land. In this Lenten recognition, we will find a fine harvest. I believe we can and that we will. My brothers and sisters, have a holy Lent.